Does anybody even use crafting? If you're anything like me, you probably opened the crafting menu on your first playthrough, then decided I'm never going to use this. It just feels unnecessary, doesn't it? In a game where your inventory often ends up looking like you robbed an entire department store, why would you ever feel the need to collect mushrooms to make a potion? Crafting is one of those things that can probably be removed from the game and most people won't even care. But maybe crafting could actually be good. After all, I haven't really given it a fair shot. So that's what I'm going to be doing in this playthrough, where I try to beat the game using only items I crafted. The main rule is pretty self-explanatory, but I am going to make some exceptions for food and key items. And to really force myself to rely on crafting, I'm banning all spells. So if it's classified as a spell, I can't use it. I go ahead and make my character, a deep gnome monk named Mulbren. You know how Mario has Wario as a rival? Well, Mulbren has Mulbren. How is Mulbren different, you might ask? Well, for one, Mulbren isn't racist, so the first thing I do is take off all my starting equipment. Since I didn't craft it, I can't use it. I will be keeping my clothes on though. No need to get in trouble for indecent exposure. I punch my way through the first encounter, but don't worry, I won't be using fists to solve every problem. I'm limiting myself to one monk just to make the run more interesting. At the helm, a little puddle of fire decimates Moonlight, and this is where I realized I didn't really have good options for healing. I couldn't use spells to heal. I had a potion, but it wasn't one I made, and since scrolls of Revivify aren't craftable, that means I won't ever be able to use them. If someone dies during combat, I can't bring them back. What have I gotten myself into? Nonetheless, we push through to the beach. I recruit Shadowheart, but as she is now, she's not very useful. She has a bunch of spells I can't use, and she punches like a toddler. I pick up my first crafting ingredient. Then I open the crafting menu to take a look at what I have to work with. Potions, elixirs, grenades, and coatings. Wait a minute, that's it? Oh no. I thought there would be more things to craft. I honestly don't think I could get by just using these consumables. Luckily, there are actually ways to craft outside of this menu, but I'll explain it when we get there. For now, I gather up my party. Gale, Astarion, and Karlach. So in order to keep track of my crafted items, I'm gonna have Karlach do all the crafting. That way it all ends up in her inventory. After a little bit of exploration, I reach level 3, and now it's time to try to get my first weapon. Near the grove and on the corpse of this dwarf, there's the shaft of a broken spear, and this is actually a component to a weapon. The only problem is the other component is on this owl bear. Remember, we don't have any equipment. No weapons, no armor. What I did have were some NPC allies, but would it be enough to take down an owlbear? Or perhaps the better question is, will it be enough to take down 2 owlbears? That's right, I forgot there was a second owlbear in honor mode. That made things just a little bit harder. But at this point, I was already committed to the fight. I did my best to try to bring down the owlbear mother, but it was looking rough. And I got so desperate, I started using the owlbear baby as a weapon. That's right, I was using his own child against it. This might be the worst thing I've ever done in this game, and I still lost. I did get pretty close though to at least beating the mother, and I was ready to give it another try, after long resting. But when I got to the cave, it seemed like the goblins had already taken care of the job for me. So it turns out I traumatized that owlbear cub for nothing. Oops. But hey, we got the other half of the spear, and with it, we can combine the pieces to make the Visions of the Absolute. It's a spear that can blind enemies on hit. It also does extra damage to enemies with multiple set of eyes. With our first weapon crafted, I go ahead and give it to Gale and turn him into a fighter. Eventually, I make my first healing potion. However, at this point, I've been playing for a while and I only had enough to make one, which was a bit concerning. The game doesn't really give you that many crafting supplies. Now in order to make our next weapon, we're gonna need some Cesar bark from the Underdark. So I use Will's charms to get us inside the Zentarum hideout. Then I take the secret elevator down into the Underdark. Now the last time I took this route, the Minotaurs beat the crap out of me, but this time I was going to be super careful. And we made it to the Myconid colony, safe and sound. And here we get access to one of the best merchants in the game, at least for this playthrough, Derif Bonecloak, who sells crafting ingredients. This should pretty much fix most of our supply issues. From there, I accept the quest to deal with the Dwagar, and Sovereign Glad offers to help us. Now this chubby mushroom guy is gonna be our best friend here in the Underdark. He's way stronger than any of us, so I'm gonna use his help to get to the Cesar bark. Now the main obstacles are the hook horrors that surround the tree, so my plan was just to lure them away, and deal with them one by one. A simple but effective plan. And what's great about Glad is he has the ability animating spores, which can be used to bring a dead enemy back on our side. And since it's a class action and not a spell, I'm allowed to use it. I clear out the rest of the hook horrors. Then I grab the Cesar bark, and with it, we can now make our second weapon. We just head to this building in the blighted village, throw the Cesar bark into the fire, then toss in a sword, and voila! We have ourselves a Cesar Greatsword, a weapon that can silence enemies on hit. Now there's actually another weapon we can craft in the Underdark, but this one's gonna be much harder to put together. There are 3 different components. One of them is on this drow next to the Cesar tree, so I go ahead and deal with him and claim the Icy Crystal. For the next piece, we're gonna have to fight the Spectator. Although it's not actually on the Spectator itself, it's on one of the statues nearby. This was a really rough fight for us. The Spectator took out Astarion almost immediately. And there was another huge problem. The Minotaur that I brought to the fight was completely unresponsive. It just froze up. It was like it was having a traumatic flashback or something. Maybe it has history with the Spectator. I don't know. The point is, it wasn't helping us. I did manage to grab the components, but this situation was looking awful for us. As a team full of melee fighters, we had trouble just reaching the Spectator, especially since it has a reaction that shoots anybody that approaches. I had to rely mostly on the NPCs. And to be fair, they were actually doing pretty well. But not well enough. Glut tragically perished. I was so close. One more hit would have done it, but Gale got disintegrated as he went in for the attack, and the battle was lost. Karlach was our only survivor. All in all, I did get what I came here for, but was it worth the price? Now the final piece of the weapon is actually behind these brambles, but in order to get inside there, we're gonna have to defeat Gekko. It would have been nice to have Glut for this battle. But since I didn't, I was gonna make sure I was level 5 before even attempting it. So I went to the goblin camp to have myself a training arc. And I honestly had a lot of fun fighting the goblins. Who doesn't love throwing around goblins? And even though we lacked equipment, we got through the battles pretty darn easily. Well, I say that, but the battle with Dwaragslin didn't quite go our way. And in a moment of panic, I sent Mulbren away, which turned out to be a horrible decision. You see, Halsin was attached to Mulbren, so with him no longer here, I completely lost control of Halsin. The bear man was now locked into the fight, and it was a fight he wasn't going to win. So that was yet another NPC, dying under my watch. I did eventually get my revenge on Dwaragslin. And after spilling a lot of goblin blood, a little bit of bugbear blood, and just a smidge of ogre blood, the party reaches level 5, and we all get an extra attack, a massive power boost. I've also been stocking up on supplies this entire time, so I had enough to make a few potions and some elixirs. The best elixir we have access to is the elixir of Hill Giant Strength, which sets your strength to 21. It's especially good on Mulbren since he has a Tavern Brawler feat, which amps up the damage bonus he gets from strength. I go ahead and have him drink it. Then we head to the beach, where I make my final preparations for my fight with Gekko. First, I scoop up all the bodies in the area, because I hate littering, and also because Gekko has the ability to raise the dead, I guess. I also push this guy to his doom. And now it's time to deal with Gekko himself. Wow, that was a lot easier than I was expecting. Maybe I overprepared for this just a little bit. With the battle done, I head to the reward room, where I claim the final component. I combine everything together, and now we have our third weapon, the Morning Frost. It's a staff that deals cold damage, and it also grants the spell Ray of Frost. And this is where I'm gonna make an exception to the rule. Since the spell comes from an item I crafted, I'm gonna allow myself to use it. Although I'm not exactly sure how helpful Ray of Frost is gonna be. Now there are actually 2 more pieces of equipment I can craft. That's right, I'm talking about the adamantine equipment. You can make 2 per playthrough, and I decided to make the armor sets. So I gathered up the modes, and the materials. But now the question was, how was I gonna deal with the giant death robot guarding the forge? Throwing. The answer is throwing. I respec Gale and Astarion, and I turned them into Eldritch Knights for the Weapon Bond ability, which makes it so whenever they throw their weapon, it returns back to their hand. It doesn't sound that impressive, but with this ability, we can pretty much trivialize the fight against the Grimm. All I had to do was to keep Astarion and Gale on the high ground, then have them chuck their weapons at the boss. And since they were throwing from so high up, their weapons were dealing tons of bonus damage. The Grimforge was now ours, and so were the armor sets. I give the medium armor to Astarion, while the heavy one goes to Gale. Both of these armors are pretty strong. They both have decent AC, and prevent the wearer from being crit. And with that, that's pretty much all the equipment I can craft, at least for now. Along with these armor sets, we have a sword for Karlach, a staff for Astarion, a spear for Gale, and all Mulbren has to work with is his tiny gnome body. And that was our arsenal. Is that enough to beat the game? To be honest, it was barely enough to beat the Grimforge. But hey, if it was easy, it wouldn't be a challenge. Something weird happened here. For some reason, the fight just stopped out of nowhere. They literally just walked away from us. It was like they were sparing us. And that was the last mistake they would ever make. I don't need your pity. Alright, after this point, I started having some trouble with my recordings. But basically, I recruited Shadowheart since she has the ability to walk in the Shadow Curse, and I had her permanently replace Gale. Also defeated Karnus and got the Pixie's Blessing. I basically had Shadowheart stand on this roof, drink a potion of speed, and she devastated them with her throwing attacks. Just imagine hordes of enemies dying. I finally come face to face with my arch nemesis, Mulbren. Now as my mortal enemy, you may think that the best thing for me to do is to let Mulbren die in prison. However, that would be a cowardly way to settle this feud, and Mulbren is a pretty merciful guy. So here's what's gonna happen. I'm breaking Mulbren out of prison, and in Act 3, we're gonna have ourselves a climactic battle between rivals. I dispatch all the guards, and we escape to prison together.
The name Mulbren Bongle will be mentioned among many, I've little doubt.
What a prick. At this point, all I could really do was try to gain a few levels before fighting the big bad. So I went around fighting whatever I could, and even operating on minimal equipment. The fights weren't too hard for us. However, I did notice that Mulbren died a lot, which makes sense I guess, he's pretty much fighting naked, and monks still have the best HP. All he has to defend himself are pretty much his reflexes and a dream, which apparently isn't enough to survive battles. I defeated the greedy Thorm fairly easily. As for the malpracticed Thorm, he volunteered to defeat himself. The alcoholic Thorm was by far the hardest. He's immune to physical damage most of the time, and for a team full of melee fighters, that really wasn't good for us. We got wrecked by him, multiple times. I did eventually beat him, but I used a rather dirty tactic. Mulbren died during battle, so I just had Shadowheart retreat to camp and revive him. Then during that same battle, I re-entered the fight with Mulbren like nothing ever happened. It's funny how honor mode brings out the least honorable tactics. Now I did something a little bit weird with Astarion, and I gave him a Ray of Frost build. I won't explain it too much, but basically it's a build centered around critting, and the Morning Frost. What's good about the Morning Frost is that it can make enemies vulnerable to cold damage, so Ray of Frost can actually hit pretty hard. The one drawback though is that it does miss quite a bit. Next, I protect Isabel from Marcus, and Isabel actually did really well this time. She stood in place and healed herself, which is literally all I ever wanted from her. They must have finally fixed her AI. I also caught Mulbren threatening this child. If you needed even more evidence of Mulbren's villainy, here you go. From there, I take on Yrgir. You know, Raphael really makes it seem like Yrgir is some kind of unstoppable monster, but in reality, this guy kind of sucks. His crossbow hits for like nothing. And the thing is, he doesn't even move that much after turning invisible, so I always know where he is. So I dealt with that idiot pretty easily. Balthazar, on the other hand, is a little bit harder. His spark clouds are really deadly, but the thing is he has limited spell slots. So I fought him for a little bit, then ran away. And when I came back to fight him again, he was all out of gas, which made for a really easy fight. I freed Amelin, and now it's time
to kill Ketheric Thorn.
To prepare, I had Karlach and Mulbren each pop an elixir of heroism, which gives them some temporary health and blesses them. And boy did I need that blessing, because Ketheric Thorn is really hard to hit. It's like trying to swat a fly. It's just impossible. A few good hits was enough to send Ketheric packing, but he left us in such bad shape that the necromites nearly destroyed us. I had to chug a bunch of potions in order to survive, which really didn't feel good, but you gotta do what you gotta do. So here we are at the point of no return. This is the battle I've been stocking up for, but will all these items give us the strength to beat Mirko? I really don't know. Nonetheless, I distributed the elixirs. Karlach gets the Elixir of Colossus, which increases her damage and makes her huge. Mulbren gets the Elixir of Hill Giant Strength. Shadowheart gets the Elixir of Bloodlust, which gives her an extra action whenever she gets a kill. And Astarion gets the Elixir of Viciousness, which increases his critical hit chance. And with everybody powered up, I was ready to face Kefric Dorm again. The battle begins and Mulbren immediately gets to work on the Mind Flayer, and within a single turn he absolutely crushes the Swid. This is a guy with no items, just an elixir, and he's eating Mind Flayers for breakfast. Mulbren nearly gets the same treatment from Kefric, but with a good crit from Daemalin, Kefric goes down, and out comes the real menace, Mirko. And just looking at his character sheet, I could tell we were in big trouble. Mirko is resistant to all physical damage, which doesn't matter much for Mulbren since he's a monk. But for Karlach and Shadowheart, it's big trouble. With a few heavy swings, Mirko devastated us. And just like that, my honor run was over. Which was fine with me, I was only doing it for the extra difficulty. But the question was, how was I actually gonna beat Mirko? Mirko had so much health. In a straight up fight, it seemed almost silly how much stronger he was than us. It was like he was just completely out of our league. I just didn't have a solid strategy against him. But by the third attempt, I started seeing some hope. We were doing steady damage. Not a lot, but the bar was moving. And I realized that Stunning Strike was really effective at keeping Mirko stunned. So while Shadowheart and Astarion kept the Necromites at bay, Karlach and Mulbren were beating the bejesus out of Mirko. But even though I was committing 2 characters to fighting the Necromites, I still couldn't keep them from reaching Mirko. Mirko got to heal. And at this point I thought I really needed to push it. We were getting close. All I needed to do was to focus Mirko down. So that's what I did. I put more attention on Mirko, and Astarion got some amazing crits. But then another Necromite made it through, and this is where the battle started slipping away. 38 HP. That was literally the amount that Necromite healed him. That one Necromite ruined this battle for me. After that crushing defeat, it was time to bring out the big guns. The Elixir of Cloud Giant Strength. This one increases your strength to a whopping 27. I probably should have used this way earlier. It's crazy. Even in a playthrough centered around crafting, I'm still so stingy about using my consumables. I also did something a little bit suspect this time. I've done this before in a previous video, but basically you can block these flesh nets with chests to prevent the Necromites from healing Mirko. Now I know what you're saying. This is cheating. I didn't craft these chests, so I can't use them. But what if I told you I am actually crafting here? I'm taking chests and I'm turning them into barricades. If that's not crafting, I don't know what is. Here's another little exploit. As you probably know, the Boneshore Aura prevents you from healing while you're near Mirko, but you can actually step out of it without even triggering an opportunity attack. All you need is a spot on the platform with a little bit of extra space, and as long as you end your turn outside of the Boneshore Aura, it's pretty easy to abuse. Karlach went down, but since she was out of the Boneshore Aura, I could just have Shadowheart throw her some potion to get her back up. So the strategy was pretty simple. I would just spend my turn attacking, retreat out of the Boneshore Aura. Mirko would strike back, but then I could just use Shadowheart to heal. That's right, even in a playthrough where Shadowheart is a fighter, she somehow ended up being the healer of the party again. Mulbren of course was doing the same thing on the other side. However, he didn't have Shadowheart, so he had to heal himself. And Mulbren, he was just dealing insane amounts of damage. He was melting through the boss. Flurry of Blows did 42 to 62 damage. I couldn't believe it. I never would have thought 6 strength would make that much difference. All in all, the fight went pretty smoothly. And the whole chest thing was probably unnecessary, so I might have bent the rules for no reason. From there, we proceed to Act 3, where I meet up with my old rival once more. And you know what, maybe he's changed his ways since we last saw him. Maybe he just needed time to chill out.
And the fucking Gondians are to blame for all of it!
Nope. I take the rune powder bomb from him. You know what, I'm not gonna even do anything with it. That's right, he poured his blood, sweat, and tears into making this thing, and I'm just gonna leave it in my inventory like it's some stupid trinket. Now that we're in Act 3, there's actually one more weapon we can craft, but I'm going to have to infiltrate the Steel Watch Foundry. So I use a potion of flying to get on top. Then I use a potion of invisibility to sneak inside. I grab the Steel Watcher arm, the targeting module, and the Watcher crossbow blueprint. Then using this special workbench, I put all the pieces together to make the Hellfire Engine crossbow. I give the crossbow to Astarion, because the Ray of Frostfield isn't really working out, and I turn him into a fighter, and a sword bard. Flashing Flourish is really powerful, since it can hit the same target twice, and the Sharpshooter feat gives them damage at the cost of accuracy. And just like that, Astarion can now dish out some serious damage. Alright, now it's time to reveal the true goal of this playthrough. I know that there's a cult trying to take over the city using a giant brain, but who even cares about that? There are more pressing matters. What I want to do above all else is to save every Gondian. That's right, the very people Mulbren seeks to destroy. Mulbren will fight to save. But before I can save the Gondians, I need to be at my best. I need to be level 12. So I spent a good amount of time leveling up. I battled some doppelgangers. I fought the circus. And I beat up Will's old friends. I also defeated some sewer cultists. Destroyed some fish people. And participated in a gang war. And I finally reached level 12. Now it's time to finalize my builds. Shadowheart originally was just an Eldritch Knight, but I spiced things up by also making her a Berserker. This gives her Enraged Throw, a throw she can use for only a bonus action. I probably should have had this a long time ago, but I haven't exactly been playing optimally. I also make her a Thief for an additional bonus action. This way she can use Enraged Throw twice a turn. And you know what, I'm doing the same for Mulbren, because getting an additional bonus action is just that good. And now that everybody's in tip-top shape, it's time to rescue the Gondians in the Iron Throne. But first, elixirs. Mulbren gets the Elixir of Hill Giant Strength, Darian and Shadowheart get the Elixir of Bloodlust, and Karlach gets the Elixir of the Colossus. And we're in. The clock is running and we have to move fast, so I have everybody slurp down a potion of speed, except for Shadowheart who drinks a potion of flying. Astarion goes in first and immediately shoots down the first enemy. He then dashes west, where he takes out another one. And with one more dash, he reaches the cell and opens it. And that was a really good turn. Shadowheart is up next, and I send her the same direction as Astarion. She opens the other cell, and although she doesn't kill the monster, she blinds it, which should help keep the Gondians safe. Karlach goes east. Down this way there are two cells, one containing Duke Ravengard. However, I made a bit of a mistake earlier, and I broke Will's pact, which means if I try to rescue the Duke, Mazora will sabotage us. For that reason, I'm leaving Ravengard behind. I'm not endangering the Gondians just to save a Duke. On Mulbren's turn, I send him south, where he easily frees two prisoners. Now in this flooded area, monsters will constantly spawn in, but there's actually a very easy way to deal with this. You just hit the lever right here, and the doors will shut, cutting off this area. And from this point, we were pretty much finished here. All there was left to do was to open the remaining cells and deal with the remaining enemies. And look at that. They can't get through the doors. And now we just wait for the Gondians to make their way to the submersible, and then we escape. And that was pretty much a flawless rescue. We got everybody. Mostly everybody. But now comes the hard part. Saving the Gondians in the Foundry. This is much more chaotic. It's basically a race to defeat the Baenites before they kill the Gondians. The first area wasn't too bad. They took care of the Baenites swiftly, and there wasn't a single Gondian casualty. The next area, however, was just a complete mess. There are more Gondians to protect and more enemies to fight, including Steel Watchers. This was going to be tough. However, the Gondians did exhibit a will to live, and they were all using Misty Step to get up onto the pipes where they were safe. Except for this guy who used Misty Step offensively. This Gondian was out for blood, and he got it. He died. Now, I could have saved Scum here to try to save this guy, but I didn't really feel like it. Besides, we were doing really well in this fight. I was able to protect everybody else, so I think I could stomach one dead Gondian. Don't blame me, this was his own fault. We have one more battle to fight here. The good news is there are no Gondians in danger in this one. The bad news is we're fighting the Steel Watcher Titan. The battle begins, and we actually do really well right off the bat. Karlach lands some incredible criticals, and she almost immediately takes out an entire Steel Watcher. Mulbren, meanwhile, was laying waste to the Steel Watcher Titan. The only worrying thing was that the enemies were resistant to piercing damage, so Shadowheart and Astarion were substantially less effective. That's not to say they weren't putting in some work. The Titan goes into defense mode, but luckily I have a Flash Blinder, a grenade that stuns Steel Watchers. I actually had 2 of these, but during the last battle, Karlach got goaded, and she ended up wasting one, which was just extremely unlucky. Thankfully for us, Mulbren was just trashing the Steel Watcher Titan. Things start looking a little bit rough, as Karlach and Astarion fall, but they don't matter, only Mulbren does, and as long as he's still standing, this fight is ours. And Mulbren beat up the Titan so badly that it decided to self-destruct rather than keep fighting him. And apparently flesh is stronger than steel. Alright, our showdown with Mulbren was right after this, so I'll go ahead and heal up. Then I have Xander hit the self-destruct button. And out comes Mulbren, the menace of Baldur's Gate. This was it, the ultimate battle. Take this. And we did it. We defeated racism. Yay! Okay, let's beat the game for real. First I defeat Gortash, which was pretty straightforward. Ornn, however, wasn't going to be, so I turned Astarion into a ranger temporarily, so he can use Wally to hit enemies through Sanctuary. However, just having one guy shoot them down slowly wasn't really too effective. I tried to help with Shadowheart by having her throw Alchemist Fire, but the damage was just pathetic. But I did discover something interesting. If I threw it using Enraged Throw, I could actually knock them prone, even through Sanctuary, but I discovered that a bit too late. Ornn was already ripping us to pieces. I was forced to run away, but I came back with a slightly different strategy. I coated Astarion's crossbow with Drow Poison, that way he could shoot people to sleep, which was pretty effective and also hilarious. I got really lucky here, because Ornn was ignoring everything that was happening in front of her, so I got to freely take out some of her minions. So the way throwing works with Sanctuary is really weird. If I try to throw with my weapon, it's impossible to target them. But when I try throwing with Alchemist Fire, I could pretty much bypass Sanctuary altogether. So I interrupt auto chanting, then I retreat one more time, and now that Ornn's alone and vulnerable, we attack. And I'm just now realizing how good Enraged Throw really is. It's guaranteed to knock enemies prone. So I hit Ornn with it, and she just loses her entire turn getting back up. So we deal 4. Now there's only one boss left to worry about, and I want to be as prepared as possible. So I hit the shops, and I spent what felt like an hour buying up supplies, and I might have overdid it a little bit. But hey, better safe than sorry. My excessive shopping did actually pay off, because I ended up wasting a bunch of elixirs. I drank some because I assumed there wouldn't be any more long rest after this point. But apparently after the Emperor throws you in the portal, it completely resets you. So I lost all of my elixirs, but I had so many ingredients I could just make more. Mulbren and Shadowheart each get an elixir of Cloud Giant Strength. Karlach gets the elixir of the Colossus, and Astarion gets the elixir of Bloodlust. After all this time, I still had the Rune Powder Bomb, but it was time to get rid of it. Hopefully there's nobody down there. What the hell? That thing just bounced right back at me. Is this thing possessed? Am I being haunted by Mulbren? That thing was obviously cursed, so I got rid of it. From there, I used a potion of invisibility to get past the courtyard. Then it was on to the final battle. I summoned all my allies, and I sent Mulbren off with a potion of flying. With the elixirs of strength, Shadowheart and Mulbren were absolute beasts. They were ripping the enemies to pieces. However, our momentum was cut short. As Mulbren was put to sleep, Zen shanked. Mulbren went down, and suddenly I was in a very dangerous situation. Remember, I don't have any ways of reviving during battle, so if Mulbren dies, he's dead for good. I needed to get him back up ASAP. The problem was the rest of my party was far away on the opposite side, and the Emperor, that useless bastard, couldn't help me back up. It was a race to get to Mulbren, so I fought my way through, and I dashed forward with Karlach, but I was still extremely far away from Mulbren. Luckily, Balm of the Moon Maiden, an ability you get from Isabel, has such a long range I was able to reach Mulbren with some healing, and with our monk back in action, our enemies didn't stand a chance. I got the portal open, and I sent the Emperor in to hit the brain with a concentrated blast. The rest of my party wasn't inside yet, so I skipped Shadowheart's turn to play around Aegis of the Absolute, since I didn't want the brain to be immune to physical damage next turn. From there, I sent the rest of the party inside the portal, and from this point, I might have made a few mistakes. Mulbren got in for some really good damage, but then came Shadowheart's turn, and the tooltip started giving me this really weird warning about death that I decided to ignore. So I drew the weapon, and not only did it deal no damage, but it was now lost forever. This was bad, but it wasn't the end of the world. I still had the Morning Frost as backup. Now, Astarion was a bit out of range, so I decided to throw him a potion of flying to help him get closer. Except, I did it using Enraged throw, so I accidentally knocked him prone, and I lost his entire turn. So that was a turn where the only one who did any damage was Mulbren. I wish I could say the mistakes ended here, but they don't. So the next turn, the Netherbrain was immune to physical damage. So I decided to spend that round buffing my party by having them chug potions of speed, but I just had to push it. I wanted to get in just a bit of necrotic damage. So Mulbren hit the brain, which triggered the brainquake, which slowed him, cancelled his haste, and made him lethargic. He was now stuck on a platform that was about to explode. I swear, I wasn't playing badly on purpose. And I had to save him by throwing him to safety. Despite my many blunders, the team still had enough damage to push through and defeat the Netherbrain. So there you go. It is possible to beat the game using only crafted items. And you could probably do it better than I did, because holy crap did I play badly. In the end, I think the main takeaway from all this is that strength elixirs are super powerful, especially when given to a monk. I mean, Mulbren pretty much carried us through the entire game. He didn't have weapons, he didn't have armor. What he did have were steroids. And maybe the lesson is, that's all you really need in life. Wait, that doesn't sound right. Whatever. That's it for the video, thanks for watching.